Welcome back to Self-Serving Skillet, everyone. Today we are going to make a little coq au vin, which is not a soup, but so it exists sort of on the fringes of our Super January, but it's a very similar recipe to beef bourguignon, which is commonly seen as a stew. Just substitute the beef for chicken here. And that informs the wine that we want to use. Beef bourguignon, a Burgundy. What's the dominant red grape in Burgundy? Pinot Noir. So if you don't have a Burgundy, get yourself a Pinot Noir or some other light-bodied wine. I'm using a Côte de Rhône, which the dominant grape in here is Grenache, another light-bodied wine. If you don't drink, maybe you want to use a red wine vinegar instead. I would make your braising liquid completely stock with maybe 2-3 tablespoons of red wine vinegar. We're gonna start with this bacon here. You don't have to use bacon, you can use butter. Butter is delicious too. I'm going to use both, and this is about 1/4 pound or 4 slices of thick cut bacon. And I'm just gonna double that up and slice it into strips here. I do really enjoy if you can get your hands on some uncut bacon, perhaps from a local butcher, or sometimes they'll sell a pack of salt pork in a grocery store. If you're gonna use the salt pork, and this goes for using the bacon as well, you'll notice that I'm not gonna add any salt to this until the very end. But make sure that you're not over seasoning your dish. That salt pork, or even just your bacon, should be just fine to season. And you'll notice that this is not sizzling when I put them in. This is a completely cold pan, and I want that to render some of this fat out, because that is the fat that I am going to cook with. So this is gonna go on super low for like half an hour, and that's gonna give me a chance to prepare a lot of the other ingredients that is gonna go into this dish. For the chicken, I'm using thighs. And I use thighs because this is a braise, this is a slow and low cook. I can leave this on for a while, and chicken thighs are practically impossible to overcook. You have to try to overcook these. You can use the whole chicken. Breast is gonna dry out really bad. So if you don't like the bones, I would suggest doing the chicken thigh, because there's one bone in it, and if you do it right, at the end, you're just gonna be able to take this bone out and throw it out. So we're just gonna dredge this in a little bit of flour here. And this is gonna do a couple things. It's going to help us leave some fond on the bottom of our pan. And that's all bits of flavor that we can scrape up later, and that helps us create our sauce. And this is going to help thicken the soup. This is the stew. The chicken with wine sauce. So we're gonna get the rest of these done. Move on to the next step here. Mushrooms. Now, mushrooms are one of those things that's also really difficult to overcook. They have this little bit of dirt on them. So we're going to wash them carefully. Mushrooms are porous, they're gonna absorb a lot of water. So I have here a bowl full of water, and I'm just gonna take one at a time, rub it with my fingers, take it out of the water, let that sediment sort of settle down to the bottom, and I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna do the next one. Notice I'm not dumping the entire bag of mushrooms in here. The last mushroom I wash that way will have absorbed significantly more water than the first mushroom. So I'm just gonna do them one at a time. I'm gonna be patient with it. I have some time with that bacon. I'm gonna transfer all of these mushrooms to this dry bowl here, and we can just kind of dump the water off that collects after I wash them all. It's no big deal. And then this water is just done. And I picked all of these mushrooms out so that they'd be roughly the same size. I know it's difficult to get exactly, as these pearl onions. And if your grocer has a mushroom bin rather than just pre-packaged mushrooms, that's what I suggest you do. Oftentimes they end up being cheaper. And you can pick out as many as you want, less go to waste, and you get to do the size that you want. But if that's not an option for you, quarter them. Quarter the mushrooms, slice the mushrooms, do whatever you need to do. All right, so these pearl onions here, we are going to give them a little treatment here, and you absolutely can dice an onion in this. They also sell pearl onions that are frozen. So you can take the frozen pearl onions and just dump them in your soup. That's completely fine. I have something a little more in mind for these, which is why I like them. They're going to be sort of multi-purpose to me, but I'm going to take the root end, all right, not this pointy part, not the stem. I'm going to take the root end and trim these all up. These are going to get boiled for a few minutes, and then they're going to pop right out of their skins. Once all of these onions are de-rooted into a pot of boiling water, I've seen this happen in as little as a minute. I usually like to go for about 3 or 4 minutes. And what we're really doing here, well, the point is to get the onion skins off. But the reason that I like this is that now I'm gonna be left with an onion broth after I strain these onions off. So I'm actually gonna save all of these roots and skins over here. Those are gonna go back in after my onions come out, and I pop out the little onion pearls. About 3-4 minutes here, and I'm going to strain these onions and reserve the liquid, because like I said, now that is an onion stock. And if I need some extra liquid in this, I can always use this onion stock. If not, I can put it in the fridge and make something delicious later. All right, so I'm gonna put the onion roots back in the pot here with this strained out stock. I'm gonna put this back on the stove on low and let all this flavor kind of come out here. And while those onions cool, shallot. Now this is kind of a big shallot. We want maybe 2 shallots in this whole dish, or one that is a super human shallot or a super shallot. I'm gonna take both this cap and this root here, throw that in my stock here so that I'm not wasting anything. Give these another rough chop if there are any ends or anything that I notice being uneven. I can kind of fix that here. Once these onions are cool enough to handle, we're just gonna pop them out of their little skins here. And you wanna pinch this peak here, because that's where it's all held together. And if you're, it takes a little bit of practice, but by the end of this bag of pearl onions, you should be able to pop the skin off and be left with what's underneath. So one more time, we're gonna pinch the base, squeeze this out. And if you don't get it perfect, that's just fine. See, like right here, I squeezed part of this out. You can just press it right back in. It's no problem. And some of them have come apart already like this. I just throw them back together. Anything that came apart, and you know, it's an onion, so put it in your dish. But you know, this way, the vast majority of the onions in your dish are going to look pretty and be bite-sized. There we go. We have our bacon back from where it was chilling out on the stove here, and look at all of this beautiful fond. That is just flavor stuck onto our pan here. So I don't want to take this bacon out because that's sometimes dishes like this can be a lot of putting stuff in the pan and taking it out just to put it back again. I'm going to get it sort of as far away from the heat as I can while turning this up to about a medium. This pan is already hot, which is why I chose it. It's a heavy cast iron bistro pan, I think is what they call it. I'm gonna try to find one and link it in the description below. And what I wanna do here is take this floured chicken and just sear it on both sides. And then I will take it off. That's the one thing that I am gonna take off. And then we're gonna be left with this sort of double fond that we're going to cook our veggies in and ultimately deglaze to make our sauce. I like to lay these down because they look like little triangles, have sort of the arrow pointing in so that they all fit and they all get the searing that we need. These only need about 2-3 minutes on this side before we're going to turn them, take them off, finish our veggies, and everything runs right into the other from here on out, which is why it's so important that we have everything else done. And we've got our bacon perfect within the time that we needed to prep our other ingredients. And would you look at that? That is just absolutely gorgeous here. Let's flip the others. Give it just a minute on this side here. Then we can build our stew. Chicken can come back out onto the same platter because this is going back in the pot again, so I'm not too concerned about it. And I'm gonna switch here to my flat scrapey device. And mushrooms are kind of the first thing that goes in here. And I like to do mushrooms first because sometimes that liquid that comes out of the mushrooms will be enough to deglaze the pan, but not always. I'm gonna throw a little knob of butter in. We have enough bacon fat in here, but I just can't resist the flavor of mushrooms and butter together. So we'll let that cook off for another minute here, and then I'll add the onions in. Onions, we'll just let that go for a little bit of time here. These don't need a lot. They're already cooked and they're gonna be sitting in this braising liquid for a good hour. I'd say you can even go more if you want to. Like I said, chicken breasts, or chicken thighs rather, you gotta try to overcook them. So there we go. And the shallots, before we add any wine here, you don't need to go with shallots, especially if you have onions. You could do some garlic and be just fine, but this is a very sort of luxurious dish, and shallots speak very well to how we're eventually going to enjoy this. Once these shallots start to get a little bit translucent, that's when I know that I want to start adding my braising liquid. So we're going to deglaze this pot here with a little Côte d'Aron, and we want about a cup, 250 milliliters, and the rest of this is going in my glass to enjoy while I'm making this. Ah, this smells amazing. All right, let's see how the smell compares to the taste. Oh, nice and light. That's gonna go with mushrooms very well. The sweetness of the onion is really gonna pull some flavor out of that too. I really like that, which just goes to show that you should buy something that you're gonna drink, that you don't mind drinking, that is even meant to be drunk as the main event. Because when alcohol, well, with anything, reduces, when it concentrates, that flavor also concentrates. So any flaws, any sort of weirdness that you're getting from you know, cheap wine, and as I say cheap wine, I mean cheaply made, not cheap in terms of price. You can get a lot of very great value wine for a relatively low price, but if a wine is cheaply made, those flaws are going to come out tenfold in your stew. All right, so this is the wine is sort of reduced to a syrup now, and I have a little bit more wine in my bottle here, so I'm just going to go ahead and a little one for me, one for you action here. And we want this wine reduced to that syrup-like consistency. I just wanted to make sure I got enough in each pot. And when we are just reduced to that sort of syrupy consistency, when you notice the wine being just a little bit more viscous, we're gonna go in with about the same volume of chicken stock. Now, I made this chicken stock on Patreon. This is probably the best chicken stock that I've ever made. And if you want to support the show for as little as $1 a month, you get to view everything I do here without the ads, ad-free. YouTube doesn't get to put ads on Patreon, so you get to watch that episode front to back, absolutely no ads. If you want the chicken stock though, that's the extra content that I put out at the duck egg level or above. So we're gonna add that, and look at how jiggly it is. It's so full of gelatin, and that's exactly what you want in a homemade stock. That's why you make a homemade stock, and this is gonna sort of melt into the rest of our liquid. And I just want to bring this together to make the sauce homogeneous. We're going to put in a little thyme. Now, fresh sprigs of thyme are amazing. Use them if you have them. I have so much dried thyme, so that's what I'm gonna use, and don't be shy. This is gonna be amazing. It's just gonna complement the red wine and the chicken and the bacon. Gonna be absolutely beautiful. So I want to get that thyme in there, as well as just a little bit of black pepper, but no salt. No salt because the bacon's salty, and this sauce is going to reduce. So I don't want to salt anything until it's had a chance to reduce. Chicken goes in. Try your best to get it on the bottom of the pan there. Little islands here. Little islands, there we go. And you want that skin sticking up. Now, it's not gonna stay crispy because it's gonna braise, and that's fine. Everything's going to thicken up because of that flour. What we're gonna do here, because we want these to sort of be like little turtles poking out of the ocean, I'm gonna take this stock here that I've added the onion skins and a few sprigs of celery that I had in my refrigerator, and all of this, and I'm just gonna bring this liquid level up to the point where these are just poking out a little bit. And that's just another layer of flavor. Let's kind of stir that liquid around there, and then we are gonna cover this. We're gonna put it on the stovetop for an hour on low. It can go in the oven as well. Let me cover this. It can go in the oven as well, but I already have the stove top going. It's already hot. So that's my preferred method. If I maybe don't have as big and thick and heavy of a cooking vessel, maybe it goes in the oven then. All right, it's been about an hour and a half. I like to let it go nice and long, get this chicken really nice and tender, and I'm gonna take it out and I'm gonna reduce this sauce by at least half. I want this to be a really nice sort of saucy quality, but it's gonna come right back up to temp. As soon as we get the sauce reduced to the viscosity that we want it, we'll put it back in, put the lid on. It's gonna be like 10 minutes until we eat. This is about the consistency that I want this, but the fat and the liquid and the water-based liquid is still pretty separated. So I'm going to use some Dijon mustard, which is very on brand for this French kind of dish here. And mustard will bind fat and water because it will attract both kinds of molecules. And this will not make this taste mustardy. This will just bind this. If anything, this acts like the bitters in a cocktail. It kind of provides a little bit of balance, but that's not even the main point of it. There we go. And if you don't want any mustard flavor at all, then maybe I recommend like a mustard powder. That would be very nice. Doesn't usually impart very much flavor. And there we go. I'm gonna kill the heat. And I'm gonna keep stirring until this settles down a little bit. This chicken has been out of this sauce for a good 20 minutes now, so I'm gonna kind of nestle it back in. I'm gonna cover, and everything's going to come back up to temperature. And in 5 minutes or so, it's dinner time. So here we have our chicken in red wine sauce. Serve this with some nice crusty bread, some of the wine that you used to cook with. This is just such a lovely, thick mushroom and onion stew with that chicken in there. And as I said before, if you're afraid of the bones, don't use chicken breast. You're gonna massacre that chicken. Use a thigh. It has one bone and it comes out that easy if you cook it low and slow like this. So let's eat. Now, I have here a fork and a knife, but you don't even need it. I mean, you barely need a spoon here to break this up, and you can just eat this with the spatula that you cooked with if you want. It's that tender. One thing I forgot to do was to taste at the end for seasoning. I could use a hair more salt, but I do know people that this is enough salt for them. Is just from the bacon and then maybe the mineral content of like the mushrooms, a little bit in the butter. So be wary of your salt. All right, just a pinch of salt there to bring out all of these wonderful flavors, and I'll get that in there. The sort of unctuous stickiness that comes with having a really good chicken stock that's nice and gelatinous. Also, the smokiness from the bacon, the earthiness of the mushrooms, the onions give it a really nice sweet character, and them being whole like that, they're kind of little balls of sweetness. So you get a little bit of textural diversification as well. This is really good, well worth the time, most of which is downtime, by the way, and you should definitely make it. So let me know in the comments below if you do make it, like the video if you're getting any value from this content, and share it with somebody that might be interested in making some coq au vin, making some soups, cooking for one person. Get in the kitchen, make yourself something amazing. The rest of this Super January started with this video here. last year's Super January. I'm gonna put some stuff over here. If you haven't seen me make the chicken stock on Patreon, www.patreon.com/self-serving skillet for as little as $1 a month.